This is Mr. JK here, coming to you from, well, my place. Anyways, um, quick, quick disclaimer. This is 100% unscripted, and therefore I will only be like maybe reading stats from a from my phone, or just kind of reading articles or whatever. Also, a quick shout out to John uh, Pearson, uh, Todd Henson, and Jacob Peterson. Those three were um, the main reason why this show even exists. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome you to Mr. JK Presents, formerly known as Facts with Mr. JK. All right. So, anyways, let's get on. Let's get in on it. Uh, First off, you see the title with the question mark. Sympathy for Patriot fans. Hell no, I ain't gonna have sympathy for you. As a Niners fan, I've been living through uh, a lot of seasons that uh, the Niners weren't even that good, and they didn't get too many calls on going towards them. All right, and you had to have known that this was coming one of these days because you spent so many seasons being at the top. You spent so many years getting those parades because your team is always in the Super Bowl. If they don't even win the Super Bowl, they're at least in the Super Bowl. I ain't gonna have sympathy for you whatsoever. I'm tired of seeing the Patriots there, to be honest with you. And it's time for another team from the AFC to be representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. So, hell no. I ain't gonna have sympathy for you guys. So what? You guys lost 2 games in a row, making it to where you lost like 3 games this season. You had to have seen this coming after being so great this long. You had to have. Shut up. All right, with that, now, um, yes, I admit I did miss last week, and no, it wasn't on purpose. Um, Hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving, because I had a good Thanksgiving as well. Um, but anyways, I I wasn't purposely neglecting this transmission because of my team losing last week. This week they won, and yes, you have been seeing a transition of me coming on here every single time my team wins. However, that is not the reason why I'm on here. All right. So, anyways, let's get down to it, okay? Because we got 2 weeks to cover here. All right. Um. Now, during the week of Thanksgiving, there was four. No, wait, no, not four. Three. Wait, three. I'm sorry, three. Um, games that were played, and in those 3 games, um, it was the home teams had a theme of losing, even though that in one of the games, the home team actually had a was a favorite over the away team. But still the away team, the visitors ended up prevailing on Thanksgiving. All right, so here's the rundown of everything. Um, the Lions were actually 3.5 point underdogs against the Bears on Thanksgiving, and that spread was actually covered. Not only was that spread covered when the Bears won 24-20 against the Lions, but like I said, they weren't the home team, and they ended up running away with that. Um, the Cowboys were actually 6.5 point favorites over the Bills, but they ended up losing against the Bills 15-20. Um, the point spread wasn't really covered during that time, but because uh, 1.5 point had to been more points would have been scored to cover that. However, they still ended up prevailing. Um, the Falcons were 7 point underdogs against the Saints, and they ended up falling to the Saints 18-26. The spread was covered during that time frame, obviously. Um, and like I stated before, it uh, hurt me to read that my Niners were underdogs against the Ravens, but the Ravens ended up coming out on top, 20-17, and no, that wasn't the spread was not covered during that time because it was read that the Ravens were 6 point favorites over the 49ers. So um, the Ravens, yes, they beat the 49ers 20-17, but they missed the spread by 3 points. Um, Panthers 10 point favorites over the Redskins. Well, they ended up losing against the Redskins 21-29. Bengals 3.5 point underdogs against the Jets. They ended up winning 22-6. The Colts 2.5 point favorites over the Titans. They ended up losing 17-31. Jaguars were only 1 point favorite over the Buccaneers. They actually ended up losing 11-28. The Dolphins 9 point underdogs against the Eagles. The Dolphins ended up winning that game, even though they were underdogs, 37-31. The Giants 6.5 point underdogs against the Packers. They ended up losing 13-31. Congratulations, Packer fans! Your team ended up coming out on top uh, last week, and my team ended up losing. Also, congratulations to the Bears fans because from that week as well, from week 13 as well, because your team ended up coming out because same thing. Your team ended up coming out on top and winning. My team ended up not winning during week 13. Um, and then the Steelers were actually 2 point underdogs against the Browns. All right. It looks like the Steelers got their revenge against the Browns because they ended up winning 20-13. And then the Cardinals were 3 point underdogs against the Rams. They ended up losing 7-34. The Chiefs were 9.5 point favorites over the Raiders. They ended up beating the Raiders 40-9, only holding the Raiders to 9 points. That means the Raiders did not even score a touchdown during that game. The Broncos were 2.5 point underdogs against the Chargers. Well, they ended up coming out on top, beating them by 23-20. The Texans were 3 point underdogs against the Patriots. All right. So when the Texans came out and beat the Patriots 28-22, that ended up being an upset, and that gave the Patriots their second loss of the season. And then on Monday night, I was actually for week 13, I was hoping that the Seahawks would lose up against the Vikings. They were 3-point favorites over the Vikings. I was hoping that was going to end up uh, working in the uh, to uh, to the Vikings' favor of that game. But however, the Seahawks ended up beating the Vikings in week 13, causing it to be where the Seahawks briefly stood on top of the NFC West. All right, I say briefly because this week the Niners actually regained. Not only did they regain the NFC West, they actually regained the number one seed in the NFC conference. So, and that was with the Niners win and the Seahawks loss. All right. And that was something I was hoping would happen, and it did. Okay. So, anyways, Thursday night, this past Thursday, all right, the Bears were actually 3-point underdogs against the Cowboys going into the game. Okay. So they came into the game. They were not even favorite to win up against the Cowboys. The Cowboys were so in other words, the Cowboys were going into Soldier Field being the favorite to win the game by at least 3 points, if not more. And they ended up and the Cowboys ended up losing 31-24. All right. So I feel sorry for the Cowboys fans out there, but the Bears fans, congratulations on that. Um, and then this week we have for Sunday the Saints going into the game were favorites by a point and a half over the Niners. Well, the Niners ended up winning that, taking down the Saints 48-46. All right, the Falcons were 3.5-point favorite over the Panthers. They ended up winning 40-20. The Ravens were 6-point underdogs against the Bills. They ended up, and the underdogs in that game, the Ravens, ended up winning 24-17 over the Bills, who were the favorites. The Browns were 6.5-point favorites over the Bengals, and the Browns ended up winning that game 27-19. And I'm actually as surprised as you guys are that that we actually have come to a time where the Browns are favorites over certain teams. The Browns are favorites. The Packers were 13-point favorites over the Redskins. Well, that wasn't covered. But the spread wasn't covered in that game. But the Packers did end up coming out winning that game by 5 points, 20-15. The Texans were, and congratulations, Packer fans. The Texans were 8-point favorites over the Broncos. Well, they ended up losing 24-38 to the Broncos. So the underdogs in that game won. The Vikings 12.5 point favorite over the Lions. That spread wasn't covered, but the Vikings did end up winning 20-7. Oh, wait. Actually, wait, that spread was covered. I stand corrected because that was a 13-point win for the Vikings. I stand corrected on that. The Jets 5-point favorites over the Dolphins. They ended up only winning by 1 point that game, 22-21, which means that. Well, I actually did see the highlights of that, and it came down to where the Jets had a chance to win with a field goal because they were down by um, a point themselves. All they had to do was march down into field goal range and get a field goal. The Cardinals were 2.5 point underdogs against the Steelers. They ended up losing 17-23, so the spread was covered in that game. The Patriots were 3-point favorites over the Chiefs. Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Where? All right, hold on. Oh yeah. Okay, so 3-point favorites over the Chiefs, and the Chiefs ended up winning that game because the Patriots ended up losing 16-23. So the Chiefs ended up going their into Foxborough and beating the Patriots by a score of 23-16. Not only was that significant because it gave the Patriots their third loss of the season, and it gave them 2 losses in a row. It also made it to where Patrick Mahomes became the very first quarterback under age 25 to beat the Patriots during the Belichick Brady era. All right. Now, the Raiders were 3-point underdogs against the Titans. They ended up losing 21-42. The Rams were only favored to win against the Seahawks by 1 point. They ended up winning 28-12. So nice. The Rams, thank you, Rams, for beating the Seahawks. Not only covering the spread against you, but you against the Seahawks, but you have made me very happy because the Niners are now back at the top where they belong. All right. Now going into last night's game, um, Monday night's game, we have the Eagles. They were 9-point favorites over the Giants. Well, it took until overtime for the Eagles to come out on top, 23-17. But they ended up coming out on top. And something else that was significant about last night's game was it was supposedly Eli Manning's last game as the New York Giant because it was reported that he is not going to try to um, be a backup, and he doesn't want to coach. So it looks like last night's game was Manning's last game before he went into retirement. So, and that would be why The rest of the Manning family was there. Archie was there. His mom was there. I think Eli's wife was there. Peyton Manning was there. Pretty much the whole Manning family was there to watch Eli Manning in his last and final game. All right. And he did end up having a excellent performance at there in the first half, which I missed due to having to be somewhere else during that time. But uh, yeah, as much respect as I have for the Manning family, I'm going to be missing seeing any of the Manning brothers play, as they had a good run. Each of them have two Super Bowls. Each of them um, had perspective. Yeah, each of them pretty much had their time. And as far as the New York Giants go, it is time for someone else to take over the helm as the QB. That's where Daniel Jones comes into play. And this is the era that there's going to be a lot of new quarterbacks taking over the reins for other teams. And I am going to predict that if it doesn't happen by next season, then maybe the season after that, that someone else takes over the reins for Tom Brady, because he has not uh, been as good as he has been in the past. The only sympathy that I'm going to have for the Patriot fans is the fact that because there is there is not much out there for quarterbacks, you're going to be um, spending a lot of time trying to find that next quarterback to replace the quarterback that's been seemingly um, the um, the time stopper. It seemed like the time has been standing still for you guys, but you know what? Otherwise, no, I'm not gonna have sympathy for you guys. All right, you guys been up top for a long, long time. I'm tired of seeing you guys up top. It's time for someone else to be there. All right, and so basically, this has been episode where I just been reading off stats and stuff like that. I apologize. Um, don't really have any new news about the um, merger between T-Mobile and Sprint type of deal. I already mentioned that Boost Mobile is gonna possibly be sold to Dish, so that they can have a platform there. So and so that's there. Now, a little update on the next spinoff that I am trying to get going. It's called JoJo, because this other guy that I know called his name is also Joe. Um, it's going to be something where the two of us uh, go and find out facts about certain things, or we find certain topics that either one of us or the both of us have opinions about, um, and we just kind of unfold them. And it'd be pretty much just like this, where the show is 100% unscripted, and so basically you'll be hearing a lot of things that um, will be like there'll be a lot of human error maybe in there just like there is here. The whole deal is it's prone to human error. So go ahead, fact check me on these things. Um, I am gonna try to like I said get a show where I'm actually like spitting out the play by play live on as I watch TV type of deal. And so without further ado, um, thank you for bearing with me on this whole ideal. Again, sorry for missing the Thanksgiving post game thing, and you got my answer on whether or not that I'm going to be giving the sympathy to the Patriot fans. Hell no. Peace out.